Hi, and welcome to another edition of City at Your Service. I'm Jonathan Thomas, and today I am joined by Lucero Arechiga, a community engagement consultant for the Community Engagement Department here at the City of Austin. Thank you so much, Lucero, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Uh, Community engagement, what does that mean to you? What does that look like, in your opinion?
Community engagement is the process of involving community in the decision making process. Especially for a city like Austin, it is a great large city with multiple departments. And so there are lots of decisions being made all the time. Community engagement is that process of involving community so that they have influence in the decisions that are being made.
Now, I'm sure there's a million ways you guys, discuss how to attack doing just that. Just kind of how do you all come to, some of the ideas that you have, some of the conclusions that you draw in terms of what works best in engaging the community?
Well, believe it or not, community engagement has an entire methodology. The city of Boston uses lots of these methods of how do we connect with the public in the way that makes sense for them, meeting people where they're at, removing barriers of participation. And a lot of it is surrounded about IAP2. IAP2 is called the International Association for Public Participation. So it's a big title that just says, how do we meet people where they're at and what level of influence people have in the decision making process. So there is a big methodology behind it, but the way we go about it varies from department to department.
Okay. Well, give me some insight on that methodology then, because that sounds interesting that there is a term for it and everything.
Yeah, there
So it's just kind of how does it work?
Yeah, so the IAP2 has a spectrum of participation from informing community all the way to empowering community. Anything from letting you know, hey, they're going to put like a stop sign on your block. And now traffic may change to the way of empowering you, which would be like, here's a stop sign, put it wherever you want. So that gives people the power. And the spectrum goes from one end to the other. So people are involved in different ways. Different departments apply this in different and different methods. So I'd be happy to explore that with you if you'd like.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So let's think about, for example, Austin resource recovery, right? We get trash collected, we get all our recyclables collected. It's a service that everybody loves because we have a lot of like faith in them, knowing that after a storm, they're going to come and collect all of the things that are being left behind. They're true and tried by community. And so community members already know what to expect from them. And a lot of that information comes from the social media platforms. And so that is a method that they utilize to stay connected to the community so that if the power goes out or something big happens in the city, that they know that, hey, they're going to be there the next morning. You can leave your trash at the front. They're going to come and get it, right? They also inform people in different ways. They go to community centers. They go out in the community and let them know what is a proper way of recycling materials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they have the, zero waste resource fair, that they go to different sites and do just that. Yeah, and that seems like that's a great way to engage the
They have
community.
they have a zero waste goal, as a metric, and so the way that they activate that is by educating the community of, like, they have an activity that's really fun that has, like, a trash bin, a recycle bin, and some other bins, and then they give you a trash thing, and you're like, where does it go?" And so kids, adults, seniors, people of all ages grab that and learn interactively, like, what to do with the item. And it's a very engaging way of learning how to dispose of things and how things could have like a second life if it's recycled. So that is a method that that department would utilize, which would look different for other departments. Let's say like code enforcement or things that have a lot of technicalities and there's like amendments to codes. There's like big changes that are happening to the city. And
Yes.
the impact of that to community members varies, right? So, for example, they might do rezoning. And so that may change where you park your car at night, or it might change where, the zoning of your community. So, those big changes, the way that we connect with community calls for a different method, right? Because it wouldn't be like, where would you put this zone line.
Right.
It's a whole different method. So the way that people approach that would be perhaps creating a survey, identifying like the impacts it would have on their communities. It might be having community meetings to see like, okay, how is this going to affect like my quality of life or the way that my community, moves in and out every single day. So every single department connects with community members in different ways, depending on the content, the urgency of something. As you can imagine, there are times where the city of Austin has experienced like, I don't know, really bad weather. We've had a lot of that happen lately. So when those things happen, there isn't a lot of time for planning.
Right.
It's just executing.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that's when a lot of departments partner together to ensure that community members know how their services are going to be affected. And so having these partnerships within departments helps us get that message out to community. But also when big changes happen, that partnership with departments help us identify what is important and how these communities may be impacted. So relationship building happens internally within the city of Austin, but exclusively we focus a lot on community and making sure that we build relationships with community so that they are part of the decision-making process.
Yeah, and so that's interesting because you as a consultant, when it comes to the way you determine what is the best advice
Yeah.
for to give to a department or a certain department in a certain situation, when it comes to that, I mean, just what goes into that, and what are the metrics or whatever that you all use to determine, well, actually this would work best, or just a sign works best here. No, you need a whole event, or you need or you need something recurring, consistent to stay on top of things so people know what's going on. How do you all do that?
Oh, well, I'll show you an example that I did with high school students. I was wanting to teach them about community engagement, and how that works, right? Um, so I'll do the same exercise, which is I had maybe like 15, 20 high school students, and they were separated by tables, and each table had a sign to create their prom.
Okay.
We were
All
talking
right.
about like juniors and seniors, so they were interested, right? That's my
Yeah.
target demographic. So they were all about prom. And at this time, the movie Barbie had come out.
Okay. Yeah.
Oppenheimer had come out.
Okay.
There was a few hits that were out in the theaters, and so they were inspired by that. And they're like, "Oh, we're gonna do Barbie. We're gonna do this," and each table immediately took off with ideas, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the engagement process when we think about a topic and people start ideating, like, how do we go about this, right? And so the first part was give me the theme, give me the location, give me the time, and go, right? And so they all started going at it, and they started thinking of locations in Austin, anywhere from like a movie theater to anywhere. And got all creative, right? So after that, I told them, okay, well, now let's think about community engagement. If you wanted to involve community, and that means you, your parents, your aunt, like anybody that wants to participate and attend this, what are some of the barriers? So some of them might be the language, right? Because we have like 82 different languages in Austin, believe it or not. So
I believe it. I believe it.
so some of the barriers is that language barrier. How can they know what the invitation's about if it's not translated, right? How could they know where to go, what time it's going to be if it's not in their language? So language is one of the things. So I talked to them about what languages are spoken in in your neighborhoods, in your families. And so I think we brought up like 5 or 6 languages, and I was like, excellent. So these materials need to be translated to 6 languages to ensure that everybody knows. Foundationally, people have the awareness in their language. So that's removing one barrier. What are other barriers? Well, accessibility, right? And so I said, are these spaces accessible for everybody in your classrooms? And then they started thinking, no, they're not, right? Some people may not be all like have the accessibility components. So then they started reconsidering what locations they had chosen based on accessibility. So they had to make those edits. And so they did that. Then after that, we talked about food, and we're like, okay, what kind of food? People were like, tacos, tacos all the way, pizzas, right? They started thinking, I'm like, okay, what dietary restrictions are there? Can everybody eat anything, right? And so they're like, oh, well, we have to have, they're like moaning about like changing and adding like, tacos have lettuce on them. I'm
I
like,
can imagine. Yeah, I
yeah.
can imagine the combos. Like, all right, fine.
Yeah, so they had to make edits to that. And little by little, I walked them through all the layers that we think for participation. And that is the way that we approach community engagement, right? When we're thinking about a specific project or an initiative that the city has, we really want to think through who are the people that should be involved, but most importantly, who are impacted by the decision that's being made, right? And those are two different audiences because we know that the people that can participate will participate. The people who often don't participate don't have the awareness, they have all the other barriers that keep them out of participating. And so a lot of our focus is looking at a project like that and then thinking of like who is going to be impacted and what are the barriers that exist and how do we tackle to remove as many barriers as we can. It's not always perfect because there's always going to be things that we have to negotiate, whether it's a time constraint or a budget constraint. But ultimately, the goal is to remove as many barriers as we can to ensure that most people who are impacted participate and everybody has the general awareness of the project going on.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point right there. I have to say though, imagining I get a Barbie theme prom that makes sense, but imagining an Oppenheimer theme prom. I mean, there are a lot of corny jokes I could tell right now. I'll spare the
It's gonna be
listener to.
prom.
But yeah, well, all right, there you go, Lucero. You did it. You did it. Go after her. And I mean, I'm just kidding. That was excellent. No, but you what you were talking about with that discussion, that workshop with them was really feeding into what I was going to ask about, equity. Obviously that's a big deal. That's a big part of what we do here. And, you know, how do you all make sure that you are engaging with everybody, because there are some people who might feel left out. What all goes into making sure you include everyone, every corner of the city, every aspect of it? How do you get as many people involved in whatever is going on?
Well, I'll tell you two things. One of them is being a consultant or anybody that works in the field of community engagement. It's always fun because it's always a puzzle that we have to solve for, right? And when someone approaches us with an issue, sometimes it's like the entire scope of a project, sometimes it's a component where they've come to a barrier, they don't know how to remove it. And so as consultants, we support them to identify how we might remove some of the barriers. And so that's always really exciting, right? And I think like for hyperactive minds and people that like puzzles like me, like that's our vibe. Like we want to go and figure this out, right? But it's also really important to go behind the scenes and realize that we're talking about people. We're talking about people's lives. We're talking about the impact this housing community in the livelihood of communities and how people live, thrive in Austin. And so we always have to make that pause. As excited as we get, we always have to make that pause and think about the people that are being impacted, but also how they might be impacted. Also, moving across the slider of the historical things that have happened in the past in Austin and how we might make improvements to move forward. Also, thinking about the slider up and down in age groups and how we might reach different audiences based on where they're at, where community are at, how they gather, what they prefer in their language. So it is a constant moving thing that really just excites us and we always ground ourselves in like people for the people and that we're trying to make sure that people have an opportunity to participate and contribute.
All right, and well, quickly before I get you out of here, I do want to ask: is there any projects coming up? Anything that you want to let us know about, where people can attend, and again, that will spark that engagement for them?
Always, always. The city of Boston is such a huge landscape of departments that serve the communities. So there's always something going on. The best way to stay informed and to come aware of like what is going on and how to participate is by going to austintexas.org, O-R-G. And so this is our Speak Up Austin page. It is our the way that you can come on board quickly to see what projects are actively going, if there are surveys actively open that you can give your feedback, if there are any community meetings, if you would like to, leave your feedback there, this is the place to go and become familiarized. So we always invite people to go to speakupaustin.org and get caught up pretty quickly as to what's going on in the city and participate. Like we always want to encourage people to participate. I know some people get tired or burned out of saying like, I said this, I said this, I said this. Please continue to speak up. speakupaustin.org. Speak up.
Speak
Please
up.
speak
It's
up.
called Speak Up for a reason.
Exactly. And so anytime that you see any of the city departments, any of us out in community, come and say hi, come and ask your questions, ask us anything that's going on, and we'll be happy to fill you in.
And another easy way to be engaged too is 311.
Exactly.
You
Absolutely.
got something. If you see something, say something. 311, even if it's good. Especially if it's good,
Yeah.
actually.
Austin 311 is everybody's friend. It's our community friend. It's a department friend. It is a great connector. So
Yeah.
311 is the way to go as well.
All right. Well, anything else you want to let us know about, Lucero?
No, I think we've covered a whole lot. But if people are curious to know more about community engagement, or they'd like to volunteer, or they'd like to get involved, visit us at speakupaustin.org. And then also you can just email us at community@austintexas.gov. And we will reach out back to you to let us know if they want to come with us, speak
Yeah.
up with us and do the thing.
No, that's great. And thank you so much for, letting us know, kind of the little bit of the science
Yeah.
and the background and how you all, engage with the community. You all do a great job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And it was great having you, Lucero. That was Lucero Arechiga, a consultant for community engagement here with the city of Austin. I am Jonathan Thomas, and this has been another edition of City at Your Service. Have a great one.